So first, let's actually do some cutting here, and I need to turn on the lights. I'm finally getting around to working on this dresser for my wife again. It is a solid white oak dresser that is going to be extremely beefy, about 5 foot long, about 30 inches high, with 10 drawers in it. And yeah, it's a beast of a dresser and a lot of pieces in it. Currently, I'm working on the carcass that will go in between the two leg assemblies. This will be about 48 pieces of lumber, between 2 and 3 inches wide and up to 5 foot long. It was a bit of a struggle trying to find them in these B-grade pieces of lumber, but I did in the end. I like to actually cut things to length before ripping them down. I just liking working with smaller, more compact pieces. So I start by cutting everything to length, and then I can plane one side perfectly smooth so that I have a reference surface to go off of and mark all of the widths of the boards. And I really enjoy pulling shavings out of oak like this. Just a lot of fun. After getting a reference edge, I can actually use the marking gauge and mark out where all of the cuts need to be in these boards, ripping them down to the appropriate width. I would love to get myself a good saw bench. I just don't have the space in my shop right now, and one of these days I'll come up with a design that allows me to be able to store it. But until then, I have to cut things vertically on my bench, and even that's a bit difficult. But it works. It's a little bit more fiddling around. When you get down to the bottom, you find yourself having to bend over in order to hold it properly. But one of these days, I'll figure something out and build myself a saw bench. Until then, it's more of this. But yeah. Not as bad as it looks, but it could be better. Once I have them all ripped to the proper width, I can start actually planing them all down to dimension. I'll start by shaping one side and getting it nice and flat and true. And I'll use the winding sticks to actually sight down and make sure that everything is exactly where it needs to be. I did a video on flattening and shaping stock recently, so if you want to see more detail on that, you can click the link here and see it. But after getting one reference side done, then I true up an edge and make sure that that is 90 degrees to the reference side, and that gives me two edges that I can mark everything else off of. And so then I can mark the final width of the board and plane everything down to those marks and end up with a really nice smooth board that is flat, true, and has parallel sides. Now, one thing at this point I'm being very, very careful about is I am remembering and marking exactly what are my reference edges. And knowing what my reference edge and reference side are very important when I come to actually laying out the marks, because there is a slight variance from piece to piece on how thick they are or where everything is. So here I'm actually putting blue tape on the reference side, and so I know that whenever I'm marking things out, I'm actually going to be marking them from this side. At this point, I'm also laying out all the pieces and all of the carcass frames and labeling them all so I know where every piece goes and how it connects to all of the other pieces in the carcass frame. And this is a bit of a work, as there are a lot of individual pieces and a lot of joints, and you have to make sure that they're all oriented correctly with the correct show faces sticking out. Now I can start by laying out all the marks on the tenons and the bridle joints and some of the mortises. There's only a few mortises in this. Most of it is bridle joint connections. And cutting the shoulders. I love it when things come out. And yeah. After cutting the shoulders, I'll then cut the cheeks. I did a whole video on cutting the tenons, and then another video on cutting mortises, and then another video on making the bridle joints. So if you want to see more detail on those particularly, you can see those videos. But it's a fairly straightforward process. Cut in the shoulder, cut down the cheek, and then you're left with a piece. For the bridle joint, it's very similar to cutting the tenons, except for rather than cutting the shoulder, I can chop it out. Some of these were too long to be effective when standing up in the vise, so I had to lean them over in order to get a good grip on them. But it just took a little bit of working to actually be able to cut it correctly, and you learn. Most of these bridle joints that needed to be chopped out, I found it easier to gang them up and chop away, and I would sort of chop as if it were a mortise, and I chop down about a ½ inch or so, and then come in from the end and pop out these small pieces. I found this oddly gratifying to chip out these pieces. Just very, very enjoyable, and yeah, I don't know why, but it was so much fun. Then once I got most of the way through on both sides, I could very carefully come in and clean out the ends and leave myself with a really nice clean bridle joint. After going through and fitting all of the pieces together and making sure everything was exactly the way it needed to be, I could go into the glue up. And it's a fairly straightforward process of making sure that there's proper glue on the surfaces and then clamping everything together. And yeah, so that's about where I'm at so far in this build. Made sure that everything was glued up well and shaped, and we're ready to move on to the next step. So there is that for the dresser. This step ended up being a little more work than I was anticipating, which is normal. Most things take a little longer than anticipated, but yeah, it was kind of interesting. It was a lot of pieces to mill up, a lot of repetitive bridle joints and mortise and tenon, but very fun in the end, and I am very pleased with how it came out. I am very, very pleased with how it came out. This is going to be a pleasure to put together and show off. So basically all of these will then be, the large pieces will be the shelves that the drawers slide on, and the small pieces will end up being the vertical dividers between the drawers. And it will all then be, the verticals will be grooved or dadoed into the shelves by a little more than a 1/16 of an inch, just enough to keep them from sliding side to side. And then the shelves will actually be dadoed into the legs a little more than a 1/4 inch, so they will be a little more stout of a connection. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So hopefully I'm going to be doing all of the dadoing here soon. Well, at first I need to clean up all these pieces and smooth them out. So a little bit of time with the smoothing plane. But yeah, I'm going to hopefully getting this all ready for the next stage, which I might actually have the next video with the carcass assembled, which that would be cool. So this is coming together. I hope you like this. This was a very fun video for me, and I'm really having a lot of fun with this project. If you did like it, please hit like and think about subscribing. Also, I want to say a huge thank you to the patrons on Patreon. You guys are incredibly phenomenal and an incredible encouragement to me, so thank you for that. If you want to find out more about Patreon, you can click on the link over here. If you did like the video, you might find you like one of the others. This one over here is actually the rest of this dresser build, so if you haven't seen the other 3 videos that have come before this, feel free to go check that out. And until next time, have a wonderful day.